This clearly has numbers in mind.
I'm putting the lid back on this can of worms.
Yeah.
Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 25 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasonowski, and I'm the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire.
We only have 2 true polls for you guys coming up this week. Lester of the Lesser Gods, number 1, and Zorro, Man of the Dead, number 4. But we're also going to be talking about a few free comic book day highlights.
Absolutely, and we have no back issue review this week. We're trying something new starting next week. Catch us a week from Saturday for a live stream book review. We'll be sure to let you know what we're reading so that you can participate in the chat.
And we should be, fingers crossed, joined by a friend for that. So, yeah, keep a lookout for that. And if you enjoy this episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Or you can find my personal socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, on to the news. Okay, so our first bit of news this week is involving a editorial change at Marvel. So, I don't know if you were familiar with kind of the way that Marvel, I guess, put out series. I don't know if that's the proper terminology. But Marvel has, in recent years, been, and this is why I think Marvel renumbers even more than DC does, which is just a ridiculous amount. Like, there's a new, I think, number 1 for most Marvel characters every year. I think we just ran into that with Deadpool, where we were like, oh, there was a Deadpool book last year too, and there's a new Deadpool number 1. But in any case, they had adopted the mindset of they would announce an ongoing, but it would only be guarantee approved for a mini series worth of issues. So I think typically it was 5. And then if it wasn't selling enough after that, it would just get canceled at 5, which is real early to cancel an ongoing.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a self-fulfilling thing to some extent where shops would order less because of that. And then shops would order less, so it would get canceled, know, and ongoing. But it seems that Marvel is now changing this approach. Moving forward, Marvel is now going to start approving series for 10 issues at a time. So still not true ongoings.
Right.
But at least double the amount of length here.
No, that's pretty exciting. I mean, I think that it's the argument that I always feel bubbling up inside of me when talking about the difference between Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, where it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender got to know what they were doing. They were guaranteed all 3 of the seasons that they wanted, so they were able to lay the groundwork and take their time and do things right. Whereas with Korra, they never knew if they were going to get renewed, so they had to finish each season as if it was the end of the show, which meant that they had to start each season as if it's the start of a new show. So even though a true ongoing mindset would be better, it is nice to have that expanded space for them to, actually finish an arc. Because 5 issues is enough for an arc, but I feel 6 is, often our full thing.
Yeah, I think it's the Marvel DC and Marvel. I think have always been Marvel's always been more on the 5s, and DC's been more on
it makes sense that they would approve it for a full arc, but still, it's nice to have that and then some.
Oh no, so absolutely. That you
can actually
but I still I don't know, man. If improvement for sure. How do you greenlight an ongoing without at least being able to say we will do a year of this? It is an ongoing.
That is absurd. It's and I think it was off camera. You and I had a very long and pedantic discussion about ongoing.
About what constitutes an ongoing. Yeah.
And I think shit like this is one of the reasons that it's a little blurry. Because it's obviously greenlighting something as an ongoing doesn't mean that it's going to run for 400 issues.
No, but I think it's supposed to mean you don't have a number in mind, right?
Exactly.
It's supposed to mean you're intending to keep going. This clearly has numbers in mind.
I'm putting the lid back on this can of worms.
Yes.
But what I was saying is that Marvel should be taking an ongoing mindset. And it is weird to have it set up like this. And it feels
if you
discouraging
want to do that,
too creative.
Route. of like being like, okay, this is a 6 issue, this is a 12 issue,
Hmm.
but if you order enough, then it will be long. Like I feel like this is counterintuitive to where leads to like it's like it's an ongoing, but also it might get canceled at any time is going to like lead to lower sales. Whereas DC's mindset of this is a mini or this is a maxi, but if it sells enough, it can keep going, leads to
Right.
increased sales.
And
Like
like the
it
thing
just
is, I
feels like
feel like that's such a good structure in my mind.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
a little bit Legend of Korra, where it's like you only know that you have six, then you only know that you have 12, but it's so much better than working in the opposite way, like canceling
yeah.
shit early.
No, I fully
But
agree.
also just greenlight ongoings, like a normal publishing
Like
company.
real ongoings, like
Yeah,
uh,
real non-Batman related ongoings.
listen. I think DC's always willing to do like a few. They have
Yeah,
their like
yeah, yeah.
couple of ongoings. I see some, and I don't like actively read many Marvel books outside of like
Hmm.
Daredevil, but like I see huge name Marvel characters, and it seems like there's a new number one every year, and I'm like, how? How is this what's happening?
No, it's wacky, cause like, and it also gets me because this is just like a personal pet peeve of mine. I hate Marvel's legacy numbering. Like the fact that they will just like in I get it for something like The Flash or like Nightwing, where it's like we're going to do a special single issue that's
Yeah,
like this is number 300, this is number 800, even if the
yeah.
number didn't always
Just
work
slaps
out.
it on.
Marvel just slaps it on there, and it's
And
like
I've
what?
always seen about them fucking it up too, like putting the wrong number or doubling up on the same number and back them up. Like somehow they just can't keep the legacy number correct.
It's just like come on, you if you're gonna do legacy numbering, just make it an ongoing. Just let
Yeah,
it live.
no, I agree, and like it's like just to use an example you pulled out there. Like I don't think Nightwing at Marvel gets to go as long as it's gone without
No,
being we number
no,
one every
certainly not.
single
And
year.
like Nightwing is a weird example because with Leaping into the Light, they did remarket it as Volume One, but that's because they fucked up so bad with Rick Grayson.
Listen though, if they're collecting, I don't care what they do in terms of
No,
renumbering
that's so
collected
fair. Yeah.
editions and shit. Like you can number that however the hell you want. I really don't care. For the real books though, man,
Yes, for the
let it
actual issues
go.
that have been an ongoing series,
Yeah, just let it
let
go.
it go.
But
And
in
like the
any
thing
case,
is, there will be flops. Like you're doing an ongoing,
yeah.
there will be creative teams or runs that suck, that are worse than the other ones in the series. But you know,
But not to like be somebody who's like if you ever listen to Todd McFarlane talk about this, because genuinely think he's one of those people who understands it so well. Spawn has kept going. There have been points in which Spawn has tanked, but he goes like in the long haul, people see like it's 300 issues long, like they don't feel like they need a number one to jump on. They will jump
yeah,
on whenever they want to jump on, and they will go, this thing's going to keep going because it has gone for 300 issues is when you are renumbering constantly, yes, the later numbers don't do as well because people are like, there's going to be an upcoming number one that I can jump onto. But that's
yeah.
a self fulfilling prophecy. If you don't do that, people will adapt.
And like it's such a beautifully unique comics thing to have issue 300 of something. Like
Yeah,
when it's not broken into seasons and shit. Like you could get reach issue 3 or episode 300 of Grey's Anatomy or whatever. I don't even know. They might have had well over 300 by this
well,
point.
shit.
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy is wild, but it's still going to be like, oh, this is season 30, episode 2, not, this
Yeah,
is issue 300 that you've been reading like consistently for 4 years.
yeah.
And it's just a bummer to not have those fun milestones feel like actually earned milestones.
I agree with you completely. But let's pivot because we have one more little bit of news
Oh,
that I
sure,
want to
yeah.
go over this week, which is that essentially Conan the Barbarian. I don't know if you know about like Conan's copyright situation, but it is
I have
very
no
funny.
idea. Please tell me.
Like it's in the public domain in the UK, but it is still copyrighted in the US, which
All
is
right.
interesting. And essentially, John Allison, who's the comic creator behind Bad Machinery and Giant Days,
Mm-hmm.
had started posting a web comic that is essentially a Conan book based on like the public domain in the
Yeah.
UK stuff, called Conan the Blood. Uh, and then Conan the New Hyborian Age, I think, is another like book that he did following this. So
Mhm.
he was doing this. I think he had released 10 of 66 pages of intended content, and he was hit by a cease and desist because despite him being in the UK, when you publish something online, it is considered to be published, across the world. So
Yeah.
a little bit of warning for anybody who wants to maybe try to take advantage of that loophole. You cannot post online, and this follows a similar incident around Red Sonja, where
Mhm.
Ben Dunn and Antarctic Press had tried to publish a parody book called Blue Sonja, and they got hit with a cease and desist, and they retooled it into Sword Maiden Blue Kendra. So a little bit of advice for our indie creators out there. Conan and Red Sonja are still viciously protected IPs, so maybe be careful.
Maybe be careful. No, that is a good warning. Before we move on to the polls, I don't know that this counts as news really, but it feels like it counts more
Okay.
than anything else. And I've been waiting to ask you about it because I thought maybe you'd pull it for the news. What's the Marvel Vampire event going on right now?
Oh,
It's like
Blood
the
Hunt.
first
Yeah,
Blood Hunt. So
yeah.
Blood Hunt is happening right now. Did you hear about the two different versions?
I did not.
So Marvel is putting out regular Blood Hunt as just like a thing. It's out there. You can read it. It is the story. But then
I
they're
know they've
also
made.
doing yeah, they have like 1,000 tie-ins. They're also releasing, I don't know for how much of it, I would think just the actual event books. Blood Hunt with like a special red band version, which is like excessively gory and violent. Uh,
That is so interesting.
right? Big spoiler for issue 1 of Blood Hunt. So, skip forward
Yeah,
2 minutes if you're
good
reading
morning.
it. Yeah. Uh, in the first issue, there are a number of Avengers who die, including Doctor Strange. And in the like regular version, he just kind of like gets offed. In the red band version, he like gets fully bisected, blood and viscera everywhere. I would love to know your thoughts on this strategy of releasing like a rated M
Uh,
version, but also like a regular version, because that's just so weird to me.
to me, it's weird that it's happening at the same time. Like, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if after the event you wanted to do like a hardcover that was the M-rated version or the red band version or whatever you want to call it, that would click a little bit more to me. Releasing it at the same time, like maybe you get people who double up and maybe it's proving to be successful. But I would think that it would just like split
Right?
your readership if it's released at the same time. But I don't know. That's such an interesting thing.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
And like
I
it's
was
so
planning on
odd to me
dipping my
because
toe
it
in this
feels like it kind of
show.
to me it feels like to go with a vampire pun, it feels like it kind of takes the teeth off of it a little bit to have this regular version. Like if you wanted this to be like a super cool violent event, why not lean
Yeah,
into that and like market it
because they
as
can't do it
that?
because it's Marvel and they're owned by Disney, and
I
they-
know. I just thought that was so weird and interesting, and I really wanted your thoughts on it since you're such a
no,
like you're
I
a
am
gore
so
whore.
glad that you brought that up because that is so interesting. That's so weird, but so interesting. But yeah, I am planning on reading a little bit of Blood Hunt because Blood Hunt Wolverine is Tom Waltz's like
Mhm.
first foray into Marvel, which I'm very interested to see, and I kind of want to be somewhat in the loop of what the
Yeah,
event's
yeah.
about. But yeah, no, I'm sure
No,
I'll
well,
grab
if
the M
you
rated
if
or the
you
red
read
band
both,
version
well,
because like yeah, no, that's
I'm
that's
I'm
that's
very
so
curious
weird.
to see how this pans out.
That's so weird. I don't.
Right?
Yeah, that's strange. But in any case, do we want to hop over to the poll list rack and talk about some free comic book day goodies and Lester of the
I am
Lesser
so
Gods?
ready to
Okay.
talk about all of those things, but especially Zorro, unburying the lead
Zorro.
early.
Zorro.
Zorro, the conclusion of Zorro.
Zorro.
Ah, all right. All right, gang, we have some awesome polls for you this week. In terms of actual regular polls, we have Lester of the Lesser Gods, number 1, and Zorro, Man of the Dead, number 4. That is the conclusion to Zorro. But we also grabbed some free comic book day goodies. We've got the Energon Universe special. We've got Gatchaman number 1. I'm sorry, number 0. And Absolute Power special from DC. But that is, of course, not all we picked up this week. Jaybird, what else did you get?
Yeah. In terms of real books, it was fairly light. I say real books, like free comic book day books aren't real books, but you get what I'm saying. It was only The Incredible Hulk number 12 and Ghost Lord number 10. In terms of free comic book day books, got kind of a fat stack.
Oh my god.
Conan, Battle of Blackstone. We got Tons of Strange, The Worlds of James Tynion IV. We got The Valiants, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles free comic book day special. Got the Hellboy and Stranger Things free comic book day special. Got the Blood Hunt free comic book day special.
Not the Red Band, probably.
No.
Imagine if it was,
though. Ultimate Universe. Free comic book day book. So, yeah, quite a few free comic book day books there. Which is...
Yeah, I was a buffoon, and I went to my comic book store on my work break instead of before I went to work. So it was a little picked through. But I also grabbed James Tynion's Boom one and Marvel Voices, which I'm excited to take a gander at. But in terms of real books, we've got the physical release of Bear Pirate Viking Queen. Remember, we interviewed these wonderful gents, so if you want to scroll back through our catalog to hear about it, we've got that in our catalog. Also grabbed Mezzo number 1 by Jared Lujan. Very excited to take a look at that as well. And after how much we've been enjoying the One Hand and the Six Fingers, teaming up again, Dan Waters and Ram V, with The Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. I'm excited to be too afraid of that one to read it in the dark.
Do you typically read comics in the dark?
You know what? I was hoping you weren't going to ask. Because no, I do not. Okay. But I do read them at night sometimes.
Built to be read in the dark because,
look, if you read at night, it's like dark ambiance. Like it's just reading by lamplight instead of daylight. I'll stick with that as my final answer.
I respect it. But
do you have thoughts on the order in which we should read these books?
I assume we'll slap the free comic book day stuff on the end. So then it basically comes down to if you want to jump into Lester or if you want to jump into Zorro first.
All I want to do is talk about Zorro all day, every day. All I want to do is talk about Zorro. Let's talk about Zorro first. We always put Zorro last. He deserves to be first.
Okay. You got
all right. Look, this book has changed me as a person, which is like not quite true, but it feels true. Viva la Vega! Viva el Zorro! Let's go! Zorro, Man of the Dead. Number 4. The arrival of Zorro might have inspired La Vega into rebelling, but that hope is dashed as Diego suffers a big defeat. With his sister captured, Diego has no choice but to give up the fight and reveal the truth about his past to El Rojo, hoping that his surrender will save Rosa and the rest of the villagers. But while Diego might have lost faith in the legend of Zorro, his friends haven't. This is, of course, coming to us from writer-artist Sean Murphy of Batman White Knight, The Plot Holes, and Tokyo Ghost. The colorist is Simon Go, and the letterer is Clay McCormick. Jay Bird, we've been pretty big fans of Zorro.
This is fully my bad, because I did not fix it. The letter on this issue is actually DC Hopkins. So
how could you do this to me?
That one's on me. That one's on me.
How could you? Clay McCormick's still the editor, though.
Yes. But that one's on me. I noticed it just as I opened the cover there. But yeah, I did not make the correction. So,
Jay,
my bad. Yes.
How do we feel about Zorro, number 4, the end of the series?
I've been really enjoying the series, and this was no different. I will throw out, I think, my I'll say my two criticisms. I had two criticisms of this
Mhm.
this issue that did not really detract from my overall love of this issue, but I want to get them out of the way so that we can really jump to it. One was didn't love the follow up to the cliffhanger of the last issue, which I think
Mhm.
is what tends to happen when you have that kind of cliffhanger because there's no
Yeah.
way to follow up on it nicely. And so, yeah, usually something that, and if you weren't, yeah, we didn't talk about it because it was a spoiler for the last issue, but spoiler for the last issue, not for this issue. Zorro Diego gets shot, and
Yeah.
that's like the final panel of the previous issue. And of course, he's just kind of fine, and
Yeah.
they grab him and pull him out. And that was a little bit the opening of this issue, while cool, was a little bit off. Maybe is one they can grab him, but they can't grab Rosa, which was a little weird. But he was the one who was just right there. So
Yeah.
the opening issue threw me off a little bit. That was my first criticism. And the second one is Trejo gets some great depth and character development in this issue. I wanted it sooner for the way that this book kind of arcs. Like it being brought up in the final issue was a
Mhm.
little bit rough, but it was really well done. As was a lot of the character, and like I read this thinking there was one more issue until obviously it started to wrap up, and I was like, oh okay, no, that works. And there were a couple things introduced in this issue that I was like, yeah, looking back on it, I kind of would have wanted earlier. Like kind of Diego gets some nice character development of like kind of you kind of figure out what's going on with him a little bit more. And I was like,
Mhm.
these are maybe I wanted a little sooner. Nothing that super detracts, but those are my couple criticisms. Other than that, as usual, the art and action is top
It's
tier.
so good.
The fact that you do so much character development compared to the other issues where it was really kind
Mhm.
of just Rosa getting anything to do character wise was awesome and really made this issue feel so great and like a great
Yeah.
conclusion. And the conclusion, which I'm not going to spoil, is fucking just phenomenal. Like the last
It's so
back
good.
half of this issue, for the most part, is just so incredible. Um, that I loved it so much. But yeah, those are my couple. Like I'm
No,
not going to say like,
I
but my like little things that I was like, those are the little things that I can
no,
pick
I
out.
hear that especially with Trejo. It's not that I wanted his like big moment to come earlier. It's that I would
No,
have liked more little breadcrumbs leading up to the moment. Um, which like I'm thinking back and there may have been, but I think that they weren't given like a ton of importance up until
yeah,
this issue. Um, but the moment that he does I cried. I'm not gonna lie. I like it's very easy to make me cry. Like it's so easy to make me cry. But I
I would have.
cried. Uh look, not all of us need it to be a character from our childhood wanting to be dead to cry. Uh or a
Hey,
literal
hey,
dead baby.
it's like the Walking Dead. Oh yeah. There you go. There's the other one. And it
And like I
wasn't
know
the
you
dead
weren't
baby.
crying over the dead
I
baby,
couldn't care
but
less about the dead baby. I have
yeah.
no emotional investment in a baby character. It was the aftermath.
Yes,
So
I understand. But yeah, it was so well done and so like beautiful, and this book just continues to send me.
oh yeah,
One of my gripes is a very deeply personal one, and I am aware of this. I feel like last issue it was like a big reveal that I feel so bad. I'm blanking on her name. Rose's girlfriend. Do you remember her name?
I do not remember her name.
Which
She
makes
wasn't
sense
in
because
this
it's
issue at
not
all.
even said in this issue. She's in the issue, which is what
Is she?
bothers me.
Did she pop
Because
up at the very
she's
end?
no, she's captured with Rosa.
Is she?
I'm like 20% sure. I think she's the one in the blue shirt.
Oh
Is she
my god!
not?
Yeah, she's just in a chair there.
Yeah,
I don't think she
and
says anything.
she doesn't say anything, and like we don't
Just sits in a chair.
we don't
It's kind
see
of
where she is when Rosa is like in the fight. So that was my big gripe, and like
I didn't
obviously
remember
it's
she was
because
in
I
a
want more
chair
lesbians.
until
But
looking
yeah, she's
back.
literally there. She doesn't say anything. Nothing is said
Yeah,
to her. She and Rosa share like one look, and it
she's
feels like
just there.
she truly has like no personality.
It's wild that she's literally just in a chair in the room, doesn't say anything, is never spoken to, and is not involved in
Right?
anything. That is
Yeah.
actually a wild thing.
Which
Um,
is that was my big thing from this
which I
issue. It
think
was just
justifies the
like
fact that I did not think she was in this issue.
no, it's totally justified, and it's why I didn't remember her name because she is not spoken to in the issue.
That's wild. No,
Yeah.
that's a super fair little gripe. I felt like you were so in her moment in issue 3, and I think maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like I said something to the extent of like she hasn't really done anything, or she hasn't like this feels a little
See,
weird.
I
That, like
thought she was going to do something.
I had the vibe from like the first two. I was like, nah, this character doesn't matter in this series,
Because, like, it
so
made
don't protect
sense
that moment.
when it was like, oh, you've left home, essentially. And so
Yeah,
you're not with your girlfriend. But then they bring her back, and it's like, she doesn't do anything. And, like, she doesn't
yeah,
inform any of Rose's decision
yeah.
making
I
while she's
think
getting.
we like now. I think we had a longer conversation about that off pod when we talked about the last issue. Like I feel like we because
Maybe.
you were like you had like a long thing about how much you loved it that I'm not sure the whole thing's in the pod, but maybe it is.
No,
Uh,
I don't quite remember either. But yeah,
yeah, but
she should have done something. Anything.
yeah, no,
Said
that's rough.
something.
She was
Anything.
like literally like you could even look and be like, if this wasn't a writer artist, you like I would be there of the thought of like the writer forgot to write them into the issue and the artist was like trying to fix it.
Ooh,
But
which is
obviously,
an interesting thought that I'll have about Lester if we want to slap ratings at the end of Zorro
yes.
here.
Let's slap ratings and recommendations and polls and all that
Yes.
jazz. I'll start us off here. I give this a
Mhm.
9 out of 10. Not my favorite issue of the series, but still a very good ending to what is one of the most consistent miniseries I
Yes.
think I've read in a long time.
No, that is so fair. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I'm such a sucker for it. My big gripe really was just her girlfriend being there and doing nothing. Uh,
It's
and
just
like if she wasn't there, I wouldn't have been mad that she wasn't there, to be clear.
yeah,
It's that she was specifically there and did nothing. It's
yeah.
so good. This whole series is so good.
Oh
Obviously, issue 4 is a rough place to jump in.
yeah.
Just get
No.
issue
There's
1.
a trade coming out in like a month or two, so
And I bet it'll
grab.
have gorgeous covers all through the back of the book. I mean, you don't have to choose between all of the great covers.
So
That
Lester
takes us,
of the Lesser Gods.
yes, from La Vega to Lester.
Lester of the Lesser Gods #1. Originally created as an unproduced animated short by Powell a decade ago, the concept was revived when the two writers were looking for a comic project to work on. Lester, the LARPing bastard son of Odin, wanders the post-apocalyptic wasteland after thwarting Satan's attempt to bring about the end of days. But can this hero of the downtrodden survive the battle arena of Will Fry, the Technomancer guy? So the writers of this book are Eric Powell, who might know from The Goon, and he's done a lot of work on Godzilla. And the co-writer is Lucky Yates, who is a voice actor on Archer, but this is their only comic book work. And the artist who does all of the art duties is Gideon Kendall of Mega Ghost and What's It. So I don't know if either one of us had any idea what to expect with this book.
No.
Katie, how did you feel about Lester of the Lesser Gods?
I mean, I'll toss out there just kind of at the beginning. I didn't like it. um, like, I can certainly see that there would be a specific audience for this book, but I think it is a specific audience. Like, it's full of kind of like, I don't know, dumb jokes and like it is full of dick jokes. Like,
Yes.
and I definitely can respect that there is an audience for a book like that, but to me it just felt like reading something that, I don't know, fifth graders were giggling at in a corner. Like it, and what's
Yeah.
weird about it, sorry, you
Yeah.
say your piece.
No. You can.
Okay. What's
You get
weird
the
is
upper hand
that,
on one.
fair enough, there are a number of things in it that I think work and are even cool, but
That's
they are
actually about to respond to what you said with.
yeah,
But yeah,
but they
no,
are so overshadowed by
yeah,
like the insistence on having these weird jokes and gags in there that I feel like just completely grind the book to a halt.
yeah,
To me, it felt like reading Captain Underpants, but like, for junior high instead of first graders.
yeah. I think I've made it known very frequently on this podcast that like jokes and quips are like my least favorite thing. So yeah, this didn't land with me at all. I quite saying I quite like the art feels a little weird. I quite like the artist, I'm gonna say. Like I didn't always like
Hmm.
what the art was like given to do, but I felt like there was a lot of cool stuff behind the art. Like the
Hmm.
opening page I thought was gorgeous, and I was actually quite into it in that opening page. And then there's things here and there. Like I liked the way that a lot of the demons looked. Like there's some
Right?
cool stuff
Like
art wise.
specifically the mutants with like mouths for
Yeah.
stomachs. I thought those were super cool.
Yeah, so I like that a bit, and I really did like the concept and like the world to some extent. So like you said, like there's a lot of
Hmm.
cool ideas and stuff that just when it's joke after joke after joke and like potty humor joke after potty humor joke, like it took so long for the first joke to get me, and the first joke that got me was the knob goblins joke. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of funny. It's like okay, that one got me. It's like but that's like the 50th joke in this book, so maybe that's a little rough. And then like I thought the end sequence of like the actual assault on like the I guess like the tech shop, whatever it was actually pretty like well done and cool. As was like kind of the cliffhanger I thought was solid.
Hmm.
But yeah, all of it's a bit detracted when it's just quip after potty humor joke after potty humor joke, and it's just like not for me.
Yeah.
But I don't like I like you said, like the idea of like it has its audience, I think, and I think its audience is going to love it because it
Hmm.
does seem like a well-made version of this joke-ridden. I don't know if I want to say satire because it doesn't really feel like it's or parody because it doesn't really like feel like it's like I'm somebody who loves post-apocalyptic books. I've talked about like post-apocalyptic is like my favorite genre. It didn't really feel like a parody of post-apocalyptic comics, so I'm not gonna say, but I do I think it has its audience, and I think overall it's well done. It's just it's it's the quipping and potty humor turned up to 11, which
Yeah.
doesn't really work for me.
Do you have a numbered rating for it?
It's your turn to start.
I hate giving books bad grades, especially when it's one where like obviously it
Not
just
the
didn't
audience.
work for me.
I
I
will.
gave
I
it a
will. I didn't, okay. You're gonna do it. All right, I was gonna
yeah,
say
I
I
gave it a 4.
okay.
Honestly, I almost gave it a 3, but then I was like, no, there are the parts of it that are really working for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, just across the board, it was not a book that I would pick up
Yeah.
again.
I agree. It's so hard to put a number rating on because like again I don't think it's poorly made at all. Like everything kind of tracks it works for what it's doing. I just didn't get particularly behind what it was doing.
Hmm.
I'm gonna throw a 4.5, I think, on it. I think that's gonna be my number. Yeah, 4.5. So yeah, if you are a fan of that kind of thing, just that like over the top humor, potty joke, just that kind of humor, and just wacky fun art because I do think the art's wacky fun art. So if that's your vibe, that's what this is. But if that's not your vibe, that's what this is. So that's my overall feelings
Well,
on the book.
Jay, would you give it a Pullis rack?
No, that's why I was giving it like my
Yeah.
kind of specified like this is
No,
who it's
yeah.
for. Because
No.
it's not a book that I'm like gonna say don't pick it up because it's bad because I don't think it is. I just think it's for the that group of people, and I think that group of people will like it. So if you're that group of people, get it.
Well, are we ready to move on to our free comic book day free for all?
Sure. I don't know if that's how I would call it, but yes. Let's move on into our free comic book day free for all.
All right, we are ready for the free comic book day free for all, or should I say three for all? Because we're talking about three of
Ah,
them.
that was
Ah,
clever. I'll give you that
yeah.
one. That
Thank
was the
you.
first
I'm
time
glad
that
you.
was actually clever.
I loved my La Vega to Lester. I thought that
and
was so
I
fun.
didn't.
He didn't even react once we cut. It wasn't a bit. He just
No,
doesn't think I'm funny.
no.
But we are starting off with Gatchaman number 0. We're going to run through this credit page real quick. There are 3 stories in this book. Episode 0 is written by Cullen Bunn. The art is by Chris Batista. The colorist is Carlos Lopez. And the letterer is Buddy Bowen. Bodoin? I'm so bad at the French. Uh, Baudoin. I
Yeah,
am
I don't
so
think it's
sorry,
with the
buddy. I'm
This
so
would be
sorry,
my
buddy.
guess.
And then Inner Compass is written by Tommy Lee Edwards. The artist is Daniel Hansen, and the letterer is John Workman. And The Rival is written by Steve Orlando. The artist is Kath Lobo, and the letterer is Frank Chetkovic. I'm so sorry,
Yep.
Frank, and also Buddy again. Jay, have
Yep.
you engaged in
No.
any gotcha? Okay, me either.
Nope. Nope.
I know
But
from
you wanted to do this.
I
You were literally
did.
like, we can add this to
Look,
the list.
I am still hype about all things Mad Cave, and I heard
No,
them talking about it. I heard them talking about
and
it
I
at
opened it, saw Cullen
C2E2.
Bunn, and I was like,
That was
aha!
one of the big reasons because I knew Colin Bunn was going to be doing the main
I
book,
was
so I was
not
like,
aware.
well, you should do Gatchaman.
Yeah, I was not
Yeah. So I know that it was kind of Power Rangers-esque, like that kind of vibe, cartoon from the 90s ish. It was like called Gatchaman, but also called, I think, G-Force or something, not the guinea pig one. See, this is like an established, kind of
yeah,
well-known property,
not
just one that we did not know well at all. Do
Yeah.
you want to pick a story to kind of talk about, and then I'll pick a story to talk about, and we'll run through it?
Yeah. Maybe funny enough, I'm not going to talk about Cullen Bunn's story here,
Oh,
despite the fact that I thought that was thought. I really liked the rival. I
I
thought the
do
rival was
too.
the best thing in this book.
Yeah.
I thought the
Do you want to
like,
give us a quick plot rundown of the rival?
if I remember it, yeah. There's like this like lad who's kind of evil, and he's talking to this other lad who's maybe not as evil. I think we're not supposed to think he's as evil at first, and they're like having a tense conversation because the one dude's like, I'm your rival and I'm gonna do some evil shit, and then he's like, I have no rival, and he murders him. And
Well, I
then,
think the important thing that you're skimming over is that the big bad of the comic has disguised himself as some sort of goon henchman, maybe, or an iconic character who we just don't recognize. And so the man who's like, I'm gonna rise up against the big bad of the book, he does not realize that he's talking to the big bad.
yeah,
And then the big bad just fucking domes him. And is like, haha, 'twas me, I have no rival. No, I like that one a
yeah,
lot too. I really liked the art in that one. I feel like it was like very good and expressive.
yeah, and the character designs,
The character
like
designs
obviously,
are so
so
dramatic. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that this was a really neat little bit that showed off, as I think it was probably supposed to, the like kind of might of our big bad. Berg Katsy. Couldn't say it in a more American way if I tried. Yeah, I actually, not to not talk about Cullen Buns, but I would like to talk about Inner Compass specifically because I was such a fan of the art of this one. It was very like
too.
kind of, and I mean this
I
as
think
a
it's
compliment.
without context.
It's very like kind of crayon-y. Like it's got these bold lines and these like big pops of color and like
Crayon?
it's very
No, you said
scratchy.
crayon. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Not to pivot to make fun of you.
Wait, what?
That's so funny.
What do you say? Crayon?
Yeah, that's how most of the people fucking say it.
That's a crayon. It's fine. Fucking loser. Pronouncing all the syllables and shit.
Pronounce it the way that it's written.
One syllable word. Crayon. But yeah, I really like this one too. I feel like this gave me a good taste of what's to come in Gatchaman, and I think that it's pretty rad. Excited to see what they do with this and how they introduce people to this property.
No, I thought it was cool overall. Definitely felt like I probably needed to know what the hell the characters were, but I thought all of it was well done for the most part, and 3 cool stories. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Speaking of 3 cool stories, want to tell us who did everything for the Energon universe?
Yes, I was shocked to see several of the artists here, which was very exciting for me.
Right?
So we have Transformers by Daniel Moore Johnson, and the art was done by Ryan Otley. How did I not know that was happening? That was sick. Colorist and Alyssa Leone. Void Rivals is the normal team. Robert Kirkman writing, Lorenzo De Felici on art, and Mateus Lopez coloring. And then G.I. Joe, another shock to me. Joshua Williamson, obviously, I know has been writing the books. I don't know if Jason Howard's been doing one of them, but Jason Howard did the art for the G.I. Joe book. Awesome surprise there, too. And then Mike Spicer as the colorist on that one. So,
and Russ Wooten was the letterer for all of them.
Yes, for everything. Russ Wooten, it does, I think, literally all of the lettering for Skybound. So, not really a surprise there.
No.
But yeah, Katie, do you want to grab? Because not
Yeah.
surprisingly, I love this top to bottom. I thought this issue was just awesome.
I
So I
enjoyed
don't
it a
know.
lot. What
What do you
I want to talk about, I feel like we're just full of surprises in this little free for all. I think it's the GI Joe one because it's not
I
specifically
love
for
that,
the Duke
honestly.
comic. I love
Yeah,
that one so much. It's the tale
I'm such
of
a fan of Jason Howard's art too. Like,
right.
it's
But to run
so
through
good.
real quick, it's the tale of Duke recruiting someone whose name shit I will find very quickly,
His
or I won't.
shooting is soon, I think. Right? It's the
Baroness. Yeah,
oh
so
yeah,
it's
it's not.
Duke recruiting Baroness, and we see like this cool sequence of her. We see this cool sequence of him, and then she has a really great reveal where she agrees to join the team, and she's in what I can only assume is like because it doesn't seem like she's normally a part of GI Joe. If the text gives me any clues,
Yeah,
so I feel like seeing someone who might be like an iconic rival or villain standing there in her full get up saying "Yo Joe" is so good. Like most of my GI Joe knowledge comes from the GI Joe
she
episode of Community, um,
amazing.
and it looks so good. It was so cool. It had like such a fun arc and then a cool little twist for the series at the end. It was so rad.
Yeah, I thought it was just a great like straight story that was easy to follow and exciting. And then there's like the end bit just really made me go like, I have all the issues of GI Joe. Maybe that's what I'm doing the rest of today because I kind of want to get into that now. So yeah, I was really enjoyed that. Really was excited about that. I want to not to maybe surprisingly not to talk about Robert Kirkman in this issue. I want to talk about the Transformers story in
I
this
mean, it was
because
really a toss up if you were going to talk about Robert Kirkman or Daniel Warren Johnson.
that's very true. Well, this was Dan Warren Johnson and Ryan Otley, so I just you know have to talk about it. One, like, I don't know. I never really thought about needing to see Ryan Otley do Transformers before, mainly because I'm not really a Transformers, super fan or
Mhm.
anything. But god damn, if it wasn't awesome. His two
Right?
base spread, and just to get a like, because Megatron is, I think, iconically the like main villain of
Hmm.
Transformers. I think I know enough to know that, but like to see kind of not an origin story for him, but an origin for like where he's going to jump into the Transformers
Yes.
book, I assume, was really cool. It made him seem really dangerous and really,
Oh yeah.
interesting villain. So I thought that that story accomplished a lot. Also, like just to see for like the first time in this Transformers like world, like non-Transformer stuff fighting with him, like there's this giant green
Yeah,
monster
these aliens.
and then like this like mer dude who like pilots it, and that was just really cool, and I enjoyed a ton. And then yeah, the Kirkman story was fine. It was my least
Yeah.
favorite out of the three. Not to like
Hmm.
I thought
Though
it was
it
still
did
good. I love
yet
the
again
characters in it.
bring Transformers into Void Rivals, which I
Yes,
don't think
which
we've
is a
actually seen since Volume 1.
no. So that I think that's a very interesting thing too. And we got to see
Yeah.
the lad who like captured them again, which
Hmm.
was cool.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
yeah,
very good
I
for
thought this
comic
was
book
really
day. Yeah.
those were a really good comic day for comic. I was
Yeah.
very happy with that one. But do you want to pivot to talking about absolute power?
I sure do. It was so nice for the
The
other two
credit.
books to put their credits
It's at the
just
end. Jump to
okay.
the. It's at the end of the story.
Rad, yeah. Um I jumped too far back actually because I'm a fool.
Onto that, like the House of Brainiac on the one
Yeah, yeah,
side with the
yeah. So,
checkers.
prelude to Absolute Power. Script is Mark Waid. The art is Michael Janine. The color is Trish Mulvihill. The letters are Ariana Mayer. The cover is Dan Mora. That good boy right there. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on
Yeah.
Absolute Power Prelude.
Um.
It's only like 10 pages.
I think it's 12, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe I'm mistaken. 3, 5, 7, 9,
No, you're right, 12.
11. Yeah. So there's not much in this, and just a ton of ads in this. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the like first 5 pages of the actual book at the very end.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not a ton going on. It does one of my least favorite things, which is like when it goes a little bit in like a lot of it before you actually kind of know what's going on, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, which I don't really love. Um, that being said, it is Mark Waid, so all the dialogue and the characterizations are really good and interesting. The art is solid, but it has almost nothing to do for most of these pages.
Yeah, it's mostly
Um,
just people talking.
yeah,
Though
and then
there
it gets like
is the
one,
instance of Haywire, kind of exploding.
and I'm not gonna feel too shitty about spoiling the 12-page story in
No, no,
Absolute
it's
Power.
free comic book
So,
day.
like the last 2 pages, like Dreamers, like Future Sight. I thought that was an awesome 2 page spread, and I
Same.
was like, oh, that got me kind of interested. So, yeah, I didn't think like the story itself, I didn't think was great, but it did kind of intrigue me a little bit, which I think is maybe the point. So
Yeah,
that's why.
I really liked the first 5 pages of Absolute Power better than the prelude to
Yes,
it.
agreed. I thought the
And what
first
I'm
five.
also gonna just be momentarily angry about is I was really excited when they brought in Haywire, because he was like one of the main antagonists of World's Finest Teen Titans, and I was like, holy shit, are we gonna like have him kind of come back in a major way? Mark Waid book to Mark Waid book, and then he explodes himself with his lightning powers. So I'm like, oh, I guess I was kind of hoping that maybe he would do something to occupy the Titans while the Justice League, not Justice League, whatever, the Trinity had to deal with something else going on. But that's fine. I'm just a little grumpy about it that he got electrocuted and died instead of fighting the Titans again.
Yeah, no, no, that's fair. Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah, it
fine.
was it's got me a little bit jazzed for Absolute Power. Not a lot jazzed, just a little bit jazzed. Now I just have to wait
Yeah,
2 months for it to start.
yeah. Well, there's like the House of Brainiac event, I think,
Mhm.
before that, which is like the lead in. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and that starts this month or last month. That started this past month and is continuing. So that's something.
But I
Yeah.
think that's going to take us to a wrap on our pull list reviews for the week, which
Yes.
means it's time for the Creator Corner. All right, gang, here we are in the Creator Corner, where we sit back, relax, talk about the comic industry, talk about being writers, talk about writing books, talk about the way books are written, all that good stuff. This week, I would love to look to the books that we read in our pull list and take inspiration from there, because that's my favorite thing to do. And this week we had a lot of things that were established properties. We had Gatchaman, we had Transformers, and we had stuff pulling from the Legend of Zorro, as well as a
Yes.
bit from, we could loosely say Lester and the Lesser Gods was pulled from Norse mythology, very loosely. So Jay, if you were writing a project that is either, a licensed thing or something based on real mythology or just stories that have already been told, what do you think is the angle to start with when doing this?
So I've done like a couple, unsolicited pitches for established properties, and then I've done,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that pulls from existing mythologies or whatever you want to talk about. So yeah, the starting place is contrary to what I think several creators have said has become the new like Marvel and DC policy on doing this. I think the starting point is to read a lot of it. Like you need to become somewhat
Mm-hmm.
immersed in what you're doing and what you are going to write a new story of. I have heard several like mid-level creators talk about Marvel and DC telling them not to read too much or like just to read enough to like know what it is so they can have fresh ideas and like a new
Right.
perspective. I don't know if and listen, I haven't written for DC or Marvel, so maybe I don't know jack shit. I don't think that's a good idea because you can either accidentally retread very established ground or write characters extremely out of character, which are both bad, I think. But what do I know? So yeah, I think the first step is just become immersed in it. And obviously it's a job, so there's always like the question of how much time and hours you're going to put into it. I'm a crazy person who just will immerse myself as completely and utterly in the thing that I'm going to write as possible. But I don't think that's necessary. But you need to get a level of
Mm-hmm.
familiarity before you start doing it.
No, and I think kind of going along with that and the like vibe of how much of this is, work. I If you're gonna do something based on a property, it should probably be a property that you already like. Like we see it with Daniel Warren Johnson with Transformers, the way that he talks about that. We see it with Robert Kirkman working with all of these properties. Like, the reason he bought them is because he liked them, and it seems like a good kind of. You shouldn't be writing something where you're like, oh, the world needs a reboot of this. It should be, I want a reboot of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll lightly put, because like I think you're correct, and especially like if we're talking about doing a create your own book based on like an established mythology or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or a public domain character. Like, yeah, do something that you like and that you know and that you're interested in. If you're getting hired, you don't always, especially
Oh
if you're
yeah,
new
for
and you don't
sure.
have like selection and stuff. So there's definitely a level two of like I've seen creators be like, oh, I didn't know about this thing until I was hired to do
Mm-hmm.
it, and then I developed an interest, like upon reading, upon watching, upon whatever the heck it is. I was talking with someone about an upcoming Mad Cave title that they're working on. I don't know if I want to, but they're working on a Mad Cave that Mad Cave's doing all these books that
Yeah.
are from established properties. So they were working on one of those that was a cartoon in the '90s, as several things that Mad Cave is doing right now are. And they were like, I had never watched it before, but then once I got the job, I went back and watched it, and
Yeah.
oh yeah, it was really freaking cool. So like that was actually, no. I think they said they had watched a couple episodes of it.
Mm-hmm.
So not completely blind, but they went back and they watched it and they were really excited by it. So yeah, I think that there's a level of like, you don't have to be a fan to get a
No,
job
you
and do a
certainly don't
job,
have to. Yeah.
but there is a level of familiarity you have to reach with it. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think it definitely will read in your work if it's something that you're like a fan of. Like I remember when we read Thundercats, I think both of us got the impression that the book itself was such like a loving bit of Thundercats. Like it didn't
yeah,
feel exploitative of it. It didn't feel like they were doing it just to get the big name. And so when it's something that you truly enjoy, I think that that really comes through. And we saw that when we talked to Nick Mueller about Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, all the way back in our first ever interview on the pod. Certainly go check
yes,
that out if you're interested. Um, and he was talking about when he first got into it, he like wasn't like super familiar with like actual Winnie the Pooh lore.
yeah, yeah,
And then his wife was like, "Here are the books, read them," and it made his book better because it was informed by the text that it was inspired by. And
yeah,
I think that that's just so uh, so important to put in the work if you don't already have that frame of reference. Kind of an odd thing that I don't think I've talked about on the pod before. When I was, you know, in my ghostwriter and doing my
your Amish
freelancing
romance
stuff,
novel things.
yeah, that it's going to be very relevant to that. Not actually. There was one of the like job boards that I was on. I had a
Yeah.
posting for like, hey, if you want me to write your Dungeons and Dragons game, I got you, man. Just give me money.
Mm.
And God bless the one man who conscripted me. He was like, yeah, I really want to take my players on an adventure through like Power Rangers, Rick and Morty, a bunch of like these properties, only
Mm.
some of which I was familiar with. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna learn a little bit about Power Rangers. I'm gonna watch a couple episodes of Power Rangers, kind of get the tone, get the vibes.
Yeah,
It really just is important to understand what you're doing. And
yeah,
like you said, it's not that you want to get bogged down in the lore like I think DC is concerned about. Like if you're picking up Batman, obviously you're not going to read all 1100 issues of Batman, but
yeah,
you gotta feel it out because otherwise, why are you doing that?
yeah.
Why are you
No,
the
no,
person writing this
absolutely.
property?
And you've just, through the D&D thing, somehow jogged loose several memories in my mind that I've forgotten that I had. But
Oh,
during my extreme freelance phase, every now and then you get hired to do a fan comic.
yeah.
So those are obviously licensed properties. So two that kind of stuck out were a Scooby Doo fan comic and a How I Met Your Mother fan comic. Um, And so the reason I bring these two up is because very different experience for me. Scooby Doo, I have a ridiculous familiarity with because my sister was obsessed with it when we were young,
So's
still is.
mine.
And I have seen almost every Scooby Doo show, most of the Scooby Doo movies. I know Scooby Doo extremely well, so I know like they have a formula. This is how the formula works. This is how the structure works. So I was able to build this fan comic on that structure and stay very true to the way that Scooby Doo works, and that was very easy, very natural. I had never seen an episode of How I Met Your Mother prior to getting hired to write this fan comic, so I watched a couple episodes. Wasn't even like the beginning. Like I think I did watch the first episode, but then I looked up like most famous or most popular because
Right.
I was like, probably don't have their proper characterizations yet in like the first episode and stuff. So I was like, let me watch like some of the real iconic ones, and I did that. And so I tried to get from, but it's definitely a different experience with something that I was extremely familiar with, or something that I was
Mm-hmm.
getting enough familiarity to write. Especially this was a fan comic that I wasn't paid very much money to write, so I watched maybe like 4 or 5 episodes, which is still a decent time commitment, before going into it compared to having the entire knowledge base of Scooby Doo. So it's just a
Right.
very experience, and I think that while both can produce a decent final product, I think one's going to be more like true to what the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of the product. Like I think both of mine have like the correct characterizations and the correct like things where you look at it and you be like, this feels right. But I think the difference is the Scooby Doo has like the soul to it. Maybe I'm getting a
Yeah.
little bit poetic for it, but it has that like
No, I think that
soul to
that's
it.
such a real thing with licensing and stuff. If you're not, I haven't actually read Mad Cave's Dick Tracy yet, and I have nothing but faith in it. But there was a series that I really liked from Aftershock called Bylines in Blood that was directly inspired by Dick Tracy. Like the main character, literally, she had a purple trench coat, but like the
Ah,
inside lining of it was yellow, so they could have like the cool yellow shots of the trench coat. And like it was such a I was an odd child sometimes, and I was obsessed with reading like the funnies out of the newspapers. And Dick Tracy was like one of my top ones for no reason, just an odd little
so
child.
what I'm hearing is
Again,
Matt,
real.
like let Katie do something with it, and that like a one shot or whatever, like just
Let
or
me
backup. Let her do the
let me
backup.
make Dick
You need a
Tracy do
backup.
violent things. I
You
can't
need
do a
you need a
backup
backup.
because shout out Mad Cave, the backups in Dick Tracy are actually from their creator owned and in house books.
Oh, I didn't realize they had backups in Dictionary.
Isn't
I didn't
that
think
so
Matt
cool
did
though?
very many backups.
They've
Oh,
got like
that's that's
the
cool.
little things from their
All right, so
other
like you
properties.
do a one shot or whatever, she's
Exactly,
ready
yes.
for it.
I'm
Yeah,
ready for it. I enjoyed Dick Tracy so much, but you could tell from Bylines in Blood, like it was a really excited. It was so excited to be informed by this other property, and
yeah,
I feel like you can really feel that. Like you said, the soul of it is there, and so I think choosing
yeah,
something that you are actually excited about, if it's something that you're choosing, obviously,
yeah,
is just so important, and it shouldn't be
yeah.
like a bandwagony thing or anything
No,
like that. Like
but
I feel
yeah,
like so many
yeah.
of the kind of edgy, like the not Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, but the what's the stupid movie?
Oh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah, I've heard from that it like it doesn't feel like it has any soul to it, and it was made just to be edgy. Whereas I don't
Yeah.
think people are saying that about Nick's
Nobody who's read it,
projects.
at least.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, there's definitely levels to it, and like one of the like I think best things you is you'll hear like, this creator was like coming after us that we have to go get the rights to this thing or make a
Hmm.
reboot of this thing or whatever because they were so impassioned or so interested in working on the property, and then like that I think typically breeds success.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that like, listen, most of the people I think listening to this or involved in this are going to be aspiring creators or people who are just doing the freelance thing. Beggars can't be choosers. If they come to you with a licensed property, do it.
Yeah.
Like
Do a
there's
little bit of research and
yeah,
make sure that
don't say
you're
no to that. But when you do get to the point where you get to choose and get to pivot, or if you're sitting here and you're like a public, because I do think public domain characters are a good way to try to
Mhm.
garner an audience and build up
Yeah,
yourself.
it gets you that
Do not
name
pick a public
familiarity.
domain character that you just think is going to be something that people might click. Like find a public domain character that you know either in your researching them or just initially you have some level of interest in. I am
Yeah.
counting down the days until Green Hornet is in the public domain because I have a story ready to go because I love that character and I'm so impassioned about it. So I think that that's where you need to be coming at it from.
Yeah. Now, to kind of advance the question past where
Yeah.
you really begin, what do you think is, because with so many of these, public domains, it's like, oh, this is a new take on this character. This is a fresh
Yeah.
take on this character.
Yeah.
Where do you think that kind of scale? Where do you think you should land on the scale of this is, a word for word remake versus this is borderline unrecognizable? How do you think you manage that scale?
It's tough. The first thing is if it's public domain, go as unrecognizable as possible most of the time.
Hmm.
Like that is typically like you need a little bit of the trueness and the heart and like the core of what it is. Again, look at Winnie, look at that stuff. You need a little bit of it there, but you can't just make the thing because the people who actually made the thing already made the thing.
Yeah.
So like if you're talking public domain and you aren't like the official or the main version of this, you need to stand out. You need to do
Hmm.
something a little bit out there, I think. Reasonable minds will differ. But if you're talking about getting a job, getting a licensed property, which you and me haven't actually done, but I know people, I've talked to people who have, and I've done, fan comics or whatever. So I will do my best to about this. This is not coming from a very experienced man. But
I mean, here's the
from
thing,
what,
coming from a reader perspective as well, I think this is
yeah,
something that would very
yeah,
much be informed by that.
absolutely. So I think there's varying degrees to it depending on how well known the character is. I still think the idea of this character isn't super well known, thus we are going to make it unrecognizable, is not the most justifiable position, despite it being a position I think a lot of comic book creators, movie makers, and stuff will make. I don't love that perspective, but it is a perspective, and it's a fair one when it comes to readership and what audiences will accept.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that really where it stands out is one, like are you stepping onto something that is already going, like you stepping onto an ongoing and like you're just the new writer, because then do not reboot, do not
Yeah.
just tell the story that you want to tell regardless of the story that came before. That happens constantly and it leads to so many problems because the last person will typically like end with a cliffhanger or something really cool that they set up and the next person will go, but no, I want to start with them where they were so that I can then change them to be something different, so let's reboot, let's fix. So if you're stepping on, get rid of whatever initial ideas you had. Go. This is where they're starting. Where should I take them? If it's something that you're, like Mad Cave, where you're like coming back to something that was a cartoon a long time ago, or whatever, I think that the level of that is just really understand what they are, what the essence of what they are is, and then feel out what story you want to tell from there. You can change, especially superficial things, but you can change
Hmm.
a lot as long as you're keeping the core there. Look at Transformers, like maybe they're not changing it, but like you are goring and violencing this up
Yeah.
to 10, 11, 12, but the core of what they are is still there, so people accept it. So yeah, that's my feeling on it. Again, it's a little bit tough to grab as somebody who hasn't done it, but that from what I hear and from what I've seen, that is my perspective.
No, that is so valid. And I think that I do differ a little bit from you, in that obviously word for word remake is an over
Yeah,
dramatization. Um, though I guess not really if you look at like the quote unquote live action Lion King of Disney, where they basically word for word, shot for shot
yeah, but we're
remade
talking about
something.
comics here, not
So I suppose
like,
it does happen, but yeah, not in comics.
yeah,
Um, I also I I think that with so many things, specifically in the comic space, when you get those licensed things, they're not necessarily going to be from comics. You're going to see stuff from TV, movies,
yeah,
from
absolutely,
cartoons, and I think that you're already kind of rocking with some strong differences when you're moving it to a comic medium, and I I think that you need to make sure that when you are doing this, you're embracing what the comic medium can do. That you're not trying to rely on the parts of the cartoon, movie, novel, whatever medium did. I think a really good example of kind of adapting that is actually the Avatar comics, the Last Airbender comics. I feel
Mm.
like they do such a good job of translating the like energy of the show to a comic page where it still feels so bouncy and so light, and they do a really good job of making it feel like it is part of this uh part of this Avatar universe. And a little bit on the flip side, to a little bit roast the Percy Jackson comic again, I feel like
I,
so much of it was
the
just yeah, back issue review from some previous week if you're
yeah.
interested. I feel like so much of it was just pulling the parts that felt important to the book
Yeah.
and then not
No, though,
using the
to make the
comic
distinction
format for
between
that.
one of those is a continuation and one of those is a
Is an adaptation.
adaptation,
Yes, yeah.
which is different. The other thing I'd say is just don't adapt novels into comic books. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to really work most of the time because it's very hard to do. I've done it
Mhm.
a million times. Like that's something I've done. If you want to talk about it, I've adapted
Yeah.
so many novels into comic books, and the best ones are always when they say like just take the idea of this and then
Mhm.
make the comic, or like just take the plot points and make this in a comic. When you actually try to essentially like one to one adapt a novel into a comic, it's a mess. It's really a mess, and it's ugly,
Yeah.
and there's but it's rough.
It
But
is silly in the years that I've been doing freelance comics, how many people have sent me like a over 200 page
oh yeah,
document being like, here's my
oh yeah,
novel. I would like this to be a
yeah.
comic script now.
It's
And I'm
the
like,
most
I'm
common
not
thing.
reading your 200-page novel. I'm so sorry.
I did a lot where they would literally like because they I would break down them like either I'm going to take the plot points and I'm going to write this thing which is going to be extremely condensed and you're going to lose a lot of the scenes and you're going to lose a lot of the stuff, or I can adapt it one for one and it's going to become even longer and it's going to be a very poorly paced comic book and it's not going to be great, but I can do that. 90% of people choose that second option that I warned them not to do and will send me 20 pages of the novel at a time for me to adapt, into 24, 30, whatever comic book pages. And it's not good because there'll be an entire issue of the comic book that is like just them in their hotel room after, having intercourse. Like that one scene of like will become an entire comic because they can't cut anything. They won't let me cut any of the dialogue. And this dialogue exchange goes for like 15 pages of, novel. And it's like, can I cut some of the lines? Can I just take the spirit? So yeah.
No.
Anyway, the adaptations are a whole nother conversation for the most part.
Yeah,
And
for sure. Yeah.
very comic books are a medium to be adapted from, not to adapt.
Fully
Is
agree.
my
Because
is
comics are one
my
of the
feeling.
most, I think we've mentioned this before, comics are one of the like most efficient medias you have
Yeah,
out there.
adapting something else into comics very rarely works. Again,
Yeah.
depending on what of adapt, you can take things and turn them into comic books. It's worked great a ton of times, but they do something different, or they move forward, or they're prequels, or they're whatever. Like they
Mhm.
don't just adapt it because that doesn't. No, don't do that. It's
No,
bad.
yeah. Truly, truly wacky. But I think that's going to take us to the end of our
Okay.
creator corner. So did you want another question? We've already been going 20
No,
minutes.
no.
I have
I
another
was
one locked and loaded if
no.
you want to talk for
Oh
another
god.
5 minutes.
No, we're good. We'll put the line here. But
Okay.
as always, we will have another episode for you guys all next Wednesday. Our polls for that one are going to be Boy Wonder #1 finally coming out. We talked about that on the news like I don't know
Yes.
5 or 6 weeks ago or something like that a while ago. The One Hand #4 continuing that. We're also continuing Monsters Are My Business with issue #2. We're continuing Morningstar also with issue #2, and we have two new indie #1s: Ain't No Grave #1 and Crocodile Black #1. So
That
six
is
six issues next week.
six
Quite a few.
issues next week. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This no back issue review format has emboldened us, which is not
yeah,
good because we talked so long during the polls. It's going to end up being
yes,
longer than
yeah,
our previous format anyway.
yeah,
But this weekend, we actually have a classic Script Heroes format. We've got a Strange Saturday Super Show for you.
yes. We do, and not
We
to shatter the illusion, we are going to record that right after we finish this right
we
now.
sure are.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
go get a little drinky
very
drink
excited.
because Strange Saturdays benefit from a buzz. But we are talking about Hack slash First Cut. That is the original 3 Devil's Due Press one shots.
Yeah.
I've never called them Devil's Due Press before. The original DDP one-shots. I took myself by surprise.
Yeah, and those were first
Obviously, we
collected.
don't know how it's going to go since we're about to go record it, but I am super excited to talk about it. Tim Seeley
I am too.
is my guy. I've got the Grayson Omnibus and the start of Nightwing Rebirth right here. I'm excited to talk about it. We'll see how it goes.
Me too.
It's certainly
But-
strange.
As always, we'll see you next week, Comic Geeks.
Brunch
I was
because
like,
it was
that's a
after
real late
noon.
brunch. Yeah, that's
Brunch is a state of mind.
I'll give you that one. That's mostly true.
I appreciate that.